Thank you, everyone. We'll give people a couple of minutes to join. We are right on time, 5 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for joining us for our weekly webinar. Today we have a smaller team. It's me, Sabrina Paganoni, and Catherine Small, our patient navigator, on the line. And we are very excited to have so many participants who are joining. I see people are still joining the Zoom call. And I see some familiar names as well as new names. So thank you for continuing to follow us. For those of you who have been here before, and thank you so much for all the new people and new folks. Okay, so let's get started. So today we have our weekly webinar. As always, we want to spend most of the time taking your questions. Really, the point of this webinar is really to have a time to dialogue, to have a dialogue with the entire ALS community. Let me just briefly summarize the concept behind the Healy ALS Platform Trial. And rather than explaining that to you today, we thought we would share a video that's also on our website, and we hope you enjoy it. And then obviously feel free to post it and share it on social media. It's on our website. Catherine, can you play the video?
Something new is here in the fight against ALS. The first ever ALS platform trial, designed to accelerate the development of effective and breakthrough treatments for people with ALS. So what's different about the Healy ALS platform trial? Instead of testing just one drug, the Healy ALS platform trial evaluates multiple treatments at the same time. This means more opportunities to find groundbreaking therapies in a faster time frame. Imagine having to build a new dock every time a different ship came to port with new treatment cargo. This is how traditional trials work. In platform trials, there is one dock to receive all the cargo and connect the treatments to their final destinations. Central infrastructure can be shared among therapies. And because different treatments are tested using a common master protocol, placebo data can be shared. In other words, patients have a far greater chance of receiving active treatment than in traditional trials. The Healy ALS platform trial will begin with 3 drugs selected by an expert evaluation committee. While therapy assignment to patients is random, each drug has an equal chance of success based on scientific evidence reviewed by the researchers. More drugs will be added soon. The trial will operate across a network of more than 50 coordinated sites nationwide, working as a team, increasing access for patients. More data, faster results, lower chance of placebo, breakthrough progress. ALS doesn't wait, and neither can we.
The Healy ALS platform trial is enrolling now.
We will continue to test new treatments. We will increase patient access to potentially life-changing therapies. We will drive the development of new biomarkers until we find a cure for all people with ALS.
Great, thank you. And so it's amazing to think that we posted the video last summer, and we were at the very beginning of the trial then, and now we started with 3 drugs: zilucoplan, verdiperstat, and CNM-Au8, as the video showed. We already added the 4th drug, predopidine. As you may have seen from recent press releases, we already selected the next 2 regimens to be added in 2021. Next slide. So we are currently enrolling at 44 sites out of the 54 that were originally selected. And if you can go to the next slide, you can see the list of sites. Since we had a webinar last week, we added University of Kansas and Vanderbilt. They're highlighted in blue to the right, and the other sites were already open for enrollment. So we are working hard to activate the last 10 sites, and then we are selecting a group of new sites in addition to the original 54, because we want to continue to expand. Again, we have great interest from patients, great interest from sites, ALS clinics. We received a great number of applications, and so we will be selecting the new sites soon. Next slide. So far, over 300 individuals with ALS have signed informed consent. At this time, we have 248 people who are receiving investigational product that's either active or placebo with a 3-to-1 ratio. And if you are interested in seeing the eligibility criteria, we have the link on the slide. I know we have received many questions about that in the past, so that's why we posted the link. Next slide. And Catherine, who's on the line today, as well as Alison, our amazing patient navigation team. Feel free to call them or email them anytime. They're available to answer any questions you might have. Next slide. And for more updates, we continue to have these weekly webinars. Again, they're short, mostly because we want to take your questions and have time for your questions. We post the schedule and registration links on our website. And then we had a recent series of webinars focused on each investigational product. We invited the companies that are manufacturing the drugs that we are testing in the trial to talk to us about the mechanism of action and the science behind their drug. So these webinars already happened in January and February. They've been recorded. So if you have any specific scientific questions about any of the drugs that are being tested right now in the Healy ALS Platform Trial, please go to the link and you can view the recording. Also, we will have webinars in the near future about the new drugs, and we are also thinking about new webinars, for our weekly updates. In addition to the updates, we're thinking about a few topics to add to this webinar series. So, for example, topics about statistics or other topics like FDA review process, things like that. So if you have any suggestions for future webinars, please feel free to send them to us today in the chat, or you can also call our patient navigation team and let them know. So now I'll stop there. And please feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box, and then we can take your questions. And Catherine, would you like to read the questions?
Sure. So the first one that we have here is, are there certain drugs or supplements that a trial participant can't be on while in the Healy platform trial? I know TEDCA and probably SPB are not allowed. What about therocumin, melatonin, things like that? I ask because many patients take supplements either on their own or as prescribed or suggested by their physician.
Great question. Yeah. So for our trial and in most trials, drugs or supplements that are currently being tested in another trial and therefore are considered investigational products are not allowed. That includes things like TADCA, for example, or sodium phenylbutyrate, because they are investigational products at this time. That also includes therocumin or curcumin, because that's been tested in a separate ALS trial. Other supplements that are more sort of general, it might be of interest to people with ALS, but are not tested in a trial, are not exclusionary. So again, the criterion is that we exclude drugs or supplements that are currently being tested in a different trial.
And then I think I have a question here. How many clinical trial participants have completed their 24 weeks?
Oh, that's a great question. So we launched the open label extension in January, and right now I don't know, I don't remember. Apologize for that. I don't remember the exact number, but again, there's the first people that started, early, have already moved on to the open label extension, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact number, but there's a good number of them who have finished and continued in the OLE.
I hadn't disabled the chat box, so we had questions coming in the chat and in Q&A. So now it should just be Q&A.
Make sure to.
I'm a rookie to the behind the scenes tech crew here today, but we do have another question that came in, and it is, do any of these drugs look at any specific biomarkers? If so, which ones and which biomarkers?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are actually looking at many biomarkers. As you know, biomarkers are very important for ALS, and we really need to test and measure biomarkers really in all our trials, both to tell if a drug is effective and also to help us learn more about ALS. So specifically in the Healy ALS Platform Trial, we're looking at many biomarkers. Some of them are related to ALS in general, like neurofilaments, and others are more specific to specific drugs. So each regimen will have their own specific biomarkers. And so we are collecting blood samples, urine samples, and optional CSF or spinal fluid samples to look at many of these biomarkers. So again, just to give you a few examples, so neurofilament are biomarkers for ALS in general, and so they are measured across all the regimens. But then there are other biomarkers that are more specific to the drug. And actually, if you go and watch the recordings of the 4 drug mechanism and science webinars, they've been discussed during those meetings. So for example, for zilucoplan, which is a drug that works on the complement system, we take many measures of complement activation and so forth. For Biohaven, that's working against or kind of blocking an enzyme called myeloperoxidase, we take measures of that particular enzyme. So again, they're very specific to the drug.
Thank you. And I do see that a few people have raised their hands. So if you're able to type the question in the chat box, we'll get to it that way. And one of the next questions that we have here is regarding whether there are any trials in British Columbia and Canada.
I actually don't know specifically in that region. So I suggest that you check, first of all, you can call Catherine, and then we can definitely help you navigate clinicaltrials.gov and other resources to look at which trials might be enrolling in British Columbia. I also recommend that you reach out to the different patient organizations or physician networks in Canada. There's sort of equivalent associations like the Canadian ALS Network and ALS Canada, as well as Action Canada. There's different groups, as you know, in Canada that can provide information. But feel free to call Catherine, and we can definitely look them up for you.
I think we actually have connected via email already, so we'll follow up afterwards.
Oh, okay, great. Excellent.
And the next question here is, when will there be a webinar about RNS 60?
Oh, yes. I mean, we don't have a specific timeline for that, but we're certainly planning webinars about all new regimens. And I think we're going to plan them when we get a little bit closer to enrollment activation for those drugs. So essentially right now we are finishing, we're kind of working hard on completing enrollment for the first 4 drugs. And we, the plan again is to have results by the end of the year. But then, when all the spots are taken for the first few drugs, we want to have already available spots for the next few drugs, so that there are always spots available for people to enroll.
Great. Then I'll say too, so we did recently have an announcement that we posted online about RNS 60. So if anyone wants the link to that, you can always email me and I'll share it.
Great.
And the next question we have is, can you get into the open label extension if you're not part of the trial?
No, the open label extension is a component of the trial itself. And that's very important. So the open label extension is a way for us to test the safety and efficacy of the drug long term. So if you think, for example, of the recent center trial, we really learned a lot in the open label extension. So that's basically sort of a continuation of the same trial. And that gives us the opportunity to follow people long term that have been taking that specific investigational product. If they started out with active regimen, then they'll be able to will be able to track safety and efficacy, over, for example, 1 year, counting from the very beginning. If they started on placebo, obviously they start getting access to the drug 6 months later, but then we can see what the effect is of this delayed start. And so again, all of this is very important. There are some regulations about approval of drugs. So for example, one of them is that you need to have at least a certain amount of people being on the drug for a certain amount of time. So really the open label extension, having the long-term follow-up of safety data as well as efficacy data really helps with the approval process. So that's what's really like integrated into the trial. So you need to start from the beginning and then move to the open label extension. We cannot accept people that were not in the original trial. But that's why we're having, we're also building expanded access programs, which are not the same thing as open label extension. It's a separate program, and that's for people who are not eligible for the trial.
Thank you. And then we have a question here regarding some other trials. So if somebody was previously in a trial like NP0001, Neurone, or any other trial, and now is in the Healy trial, how do the PIs and statisticians ensure that the responders are responding to the current trial and not to the previous trials?
No, that's a great question. Well, that's actually why we have a washout between trials. So that's very typical, not just for this trial, for all trials really. And that's also why we cannot allow other drugs or supplements that are currently being tested in a different trial, because otherwise we wouldn't know which investigational product or supplement has the effect that we're seeing. So essentially there is a washout. If people were in Brainstorm or MP01 or any other trial really, then we ask people to have a washout, and that's generally about a month before they enroll in our trial. This is what allows us to tell if the current treatment is the one that's having an effect. And again, in that month or so, generally, the idea is that the previous drug gets flushed out. And so again, we proceed to testing the new drug.
And we have a question here. Can you describe the process and criteria by which you select new therapies for the platform trial? And is there a maximum number that you would include concurrently?
Yeah, I would be happy to. So, the process and criteria are the following. There is a therapy evaluation committee that includes some of the, most knowledgeable ALS scientists and clinicians on the planet, really. And it's a great committee that reviews new applications. So companies need to apply to be part of the platform trial. And the therapy evaluation committee reviews each application with a certain set of criteria. And the criteria essentially include, they're mostly focused on the science, meaning is this a good drug for ALS? Is there a strong scientific evidence suggesting that this could be a good drug for ALS? And so that's the number one criterion. They also look at more practical things, such as previous experience in early trials, to ensure that the drug, that we know about the safety of the drug, we know about the dosing, the dosages, we know about the target engagement of the drug, so that we can be confident that the drug can be given to a large group of ALS patients. So again, both aspects are considered. We also need to have obviously drug available and drug supply and other operational aspects, but really the key is the scientific interest. Is this a good drug for ALS? That's the number one criterion. In terms of how many can be included concurrently, really, there's no set number. I can tell you that just for sanity and to make sure that, we don't overwhelm the system, we are thinking that, 3-4 drugs at all times is a good number because that allows us to have good enrollment. Essentially, in all regimens with the current sites. But again, we could also expand. The hope is that if this model continues to be successful, then ideally, we can include more sites as we're doing already and expand and continue to expand and perhaps include even more drugs. But I think that for now, for the next couple of years of this experience, we're probably going to keep it at 3 or 4 drugs per year at the same time.
And then somebody has a question here about if we know the current percentage of enrollment in each regimen.
Yeah, so now we already met the 50%. So again, we are really making a lot of progress, as you have seen before, for the first 3 regimens, which are the ones that started in July 2020. We really made great progress, which is great. And then for the 4th drug, that was added in January. So the only reason the 4th drug has fewer participants is just because it started later, but they're all enrolling equally well.
Then I think there's a follow-up comment regarding Canadian interest. So someone is saying here that there are no clinical trials in British Columbia.
I see. So thank you for the information. Again, you know, I think it's important to continue to connect and advocate with the Canadian organizations to allow more trials. Yeah.
Then another question here about the progress of the trial. So what has the retention been like for the trials? Are people dropping out, or are there any adverse events?
Yeah, so I mean, retention has been quite good. I mean, obviously, as in any trial, there might be people that might drop out or have adverse events, but again, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that we really didn't expect. And so I think I would say the retention has been really, really great.
And next question here is, when do you expect to have an initial read on the Healy trial results?
So we expect that to happen by the end of 2021, because again, the enrollment has been going well. Now, I have to say, COVID has provided an incredible number of challenges. Obviously, not just because some of our sites had barriers to enrollment, many sites restricted access to research. So we really are still facing COVID-related challenges, and I think it's really remarkable, to see the great enrollment numbers in spite of the pandemic. So essentially, if the enrollment continues this way, we expect results for the first 3 that again, were the first ones to start by the end of the year. So keep in mind that you can only have results after the last person that was enrolled completes the 6 months of observation. So you have an enrollment period, but then everyone is followed for 6 months for the double-blind part. So really, you need to wait until the last person enrolled completes the 6 months before you can analyze the data. Now, we do have interim analysis. You may have been on previous webinars. We do have periodic looks to make sure that there's no safety concerns, and we have something called interim analysis for futility, meaning that if the drug clearly is not working, we can stop the trial early, but to get a full set of results, we need to wait until the last patient completes the follow-up.
And that same person is also wondering, how long should a patient with ALS expect to wait to be screened for enrollment after they've expressed interest in the trial?
Yeah, so I mean, the ideal situation is that we create enough capacity for people to be able to be screened, soon after, right after they express interest. Now, I do want to acknowledge that we so far, we do see the sites cannot accommodate everyone who has an interest in joining, and then we're certainly working very hard to address that. And ways we're doing that again is to add more sites, add more capacity at the sites. We're actively working on that. So again, ideally, we want to get to a point where everyone who expresses interest can be screened right away. At this time, I know that many sites are experiencing some wait times for people who have an interest. This depends on the site. We don't manage that centrally. It really depends on the capacity for coordinators, how many coordinators, how many investigators they have available to work on the trial. And I can tell you that many sites are working hard to increase capacity at this time.
Great. I'll say too, if there's a particular site that you had reached out to express interest and you're not sure where you stand at that site, or if there's any trouble connecting with a site and communicating with one of our platform trial teams, you can reach out to me by phone or email, and I can kind of dig around behind the scenes for you. And moving on to another question here. So, are you collecting the same data from the Healy EAP participants as you are from the phase 3 trial participants? And will that data be part of the manufacturer's submissions for approval if the EAP reads out with efficacy?
So the main goal of EAPs, which stands for Expanded Access Programs, so the main goal of the EAPs are to provide access to the drug. There is some data collection, but it's much lighter than the one that we do for the platform trial itself. So again, there is some data collection, which is super important and super helpful to really understand the safety and clinical data on a broader population, but it's not the same level of data collection.
And there's a question related to EAPs here, so I'll throw that in the mix. Somebody is wondering if the patient community raises more money specifically for EAP, does your IRB allow for additional EAP enrollees beyond the 30 approved for each regimen? And if so, where would we donate?
Yeah, I mean, the IRB will certainly allow for additional enrollees. I mean, the only limitation at this time is funding. So absolutely, you know, if you can connect with us or other groups that do EAPs, you know, that support EAPs, again, the only limiting factor right now is funding. And so we're certainly actively fundraising. We've been, for those of you who have been on this call, we've been actively fundraising for a while for EAPs. And that's what allowed us to start with small programs. Certainly with more funding, we can continue to expand.
And someone is wondering, are there any age limitations for the trial?
You need to be an adult, so 18 or older, but there's no upper limit.
And then, are any of the trial arms fully enrolled yet? And will results be released as each arm concludes, or do you have to wait until all of the active arms have completed? So for example, if participants in the CNM AU8 arm complete the 24 weeks and the results look promising, would those results be released right away, or would you have to wait until the other arms have also completed?
So the results are released per regimen. So again, it's not like they have to wait. I would say that the amazing thing is that we opened with 3 regimens at the same time. So the results of the first 3 regimens will be available essentially at the same time. And so that's one of the great features of the platform trial, that we, instead of having, you know, one answer you know, at a time, we have multiple, we can answer multiple scientific questions essentially around the same time, because we launched with 3 drugs, not 1. And so we will be able to offer the results of all the first 3 at the same time.
Then there are some questions coming in about different trials. So maybe I'll group those all in the end here, and we'll get through the Healy questions. So there's another question related to EAP. So if someone's site is not one of the 3 initial sites that's going to be offering the EAP, if a patient were to switch sites, what is the criteria to enroll in expanded access? Is there going to be funding for more people to have access?
Yeah, again, we are fundraising to increase access and to expand to other sites. So the hope is that we can continue to do that. So at this time, these programs are very small. Just want to say that, unfortunately, again, because of funding limitations. But we are actively working on expanding that and also to other sites. So I would say that the best place to start is to start with a conversation with your physician at the site where you are, and see whether, you know, again, there might be other EAP possibilities, or maybe new programs that we can jumpstart in collaboration with that physician. Any site can really start an EAP, but again, you need resources for doing that. So any physician could start an EAP, but you need resources. And one of the goals of our initial batch of EAP programs, of the EAP studies, is that we really want to provide a set of documents, templates, best practices that we will share freely with any investigator who's interested in starting their own EAP, because there is, you know, a financial barrier, but there's also sort of an expertise barrier that, you know, if you've never done it before, there's a set of protocols, you know, documents, etc., that they have to be filled out, and they are rather complex. So again, we are gonna make we're gonna make all of our expertise freely available to the entire community, so that hopefully in the near future other people can sort of replicate the model. But again, so that there's that kind of expertise gap, but there's also the funding that each site needs to raise.
And there's a question here: if you're in the trial and you still progress, when the open label extension period begins, can you switch trial arms to a different substance?
No, so essentially, as I said earlier, the open label extension is an integral part of the trial, and it's very important for us to really fully understand the efficacy of the drug. That's part of the FDA guidance, and so it's really one trial. So in other words, the protocol, the database, it's really one, and people kind of transition without gap or without gap. It's not really break point between randomized and open label. It's the same individual, the same experience along the trial. So in terms of progression, I just want to kind of share that it's very hard to on an individual basis to know again if there's any response or not. So it's hard to gauge individually whether somebody is responding to a drug or not. And so that's why I think we really need to wait until the end of the trial to really be able to tell if the drug works in the population in general.
But I want to clarify too. So for that question, if somebody's in regimen A, they would, have the option of enrolling in the open label for regimen A. But if somebody gets to the end and they complete that first 6-month period, the double-blind period for regimen A, would they be able to switch into a different regimen if they wanted to re-enroll rather than going into open label extension?
I'm sorry, was that a question for me?
Yeah, so in terms of being able to switch to a different arm of the trial or switching to a different substance.
Oh, yes. People can they do. So again, most trials in the past didn't even have the option of an open label extension, and now we're offering the option. But people can also choose differently, and they can choose to rescreen for participation in the trial, and they will be assigned to other regimens. So they could switch to a different regimen, but they would be part of the placebo-controlled trial, and they would have to be still eligible for the trial itself. Was that your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up because there were kind of two roads that you could go off
You're
with
right.
that one.
You're right. Yeah.
And I'm scrolling too far here. So someone says, I know in the past you said you originally evaluated many proposals and, with 30 applications, chose the top 4 or 5.
Right.
So we have the original list. Do you look at this all the time? What if new, more promising drugs from a different company comes along? Would you move it up in the order?
So we continue to receive new requests. So I just want to say that again, we continue to stay on top of the new science and the new developments, and the new drugs again are being selected from new requests. Somebody can apply again, obviously, if sort of new data emerges. But again, we're evaluating new requests, so people would have to reapply.
And then a question here: can a patient ask for records of all the measurements made during the monthly visits for their own personal records?
So basically, if there's something that's helpful clinically, so for example, if there's a lab or some sort of measurement that could be helpful to help with clinical practice, because for example, maybe somebody doesn't want to come to the center twice, for example, we can do that in collaboration with your physician. So that's something that's possible again to facilitate clinical practice, and that would be good in collaboration with a physician.
And then we have a question here about international participation. So can international patients enroll in the trial if they access Mass General's care through the International Patient Center?
Yeah, I mean, the international patients can certainly enroll, not just at Mass General, but also at many other sites. I do want to caution that people will need to be available to travel to be part of the visits. So currently with the pandemic and sort of closure of the borders, I mean, again, you would have to discuss with the physician if that's possible for you to travel frequently to the US.
And some more questions here about the EAP. So is it possible for a patient to pay and cover the finances of the EAP for their own benefit?
So the EAPs are still research programs. They are free to the individuals, but again, you need an infrastructure to be able to set it up, have IRB approval, FDA oversight. So again, it's not just sort of a just kind of a financial constraint. It's also that one needs to set up the infrastructure for that. It's still a research project. So again, we don't charge participants, and it's just a matter of setting up these type of programs. We're gonna jumpstart one. We already have single center ones that's been going on at the Healy Center for a couple of years now, and now we're going to jumpstart an EAP program in parallel to the platform trial, so that more sites can get on board, because it's actually it's actually complex for a physician. So we're really trying to help other colleagues jumpstart EAPs at their own institutions.
And kind of branching off of that, would other Healy EAP sites need their own IRB some people have been told that the cost would be over $30,000 to get an EAP at their site, and their neurologists were not interested in pursuing it.
Yeah, again, it's financial commitment. It's also very time consuming in terms of the process. So I think that what we want to do is to create a system where it's easier for the sites to get on board. For the EAPs that we are doing in parallel to the platform trial, we're using one central IRB. So each site will not need to use their own IRB. Again, we're creating the infrastructure to make this more scalable and possible for other sites.
Somebody's asking, do we have a summary of any success being defined as slowing, stopping, or reversing the disease?
So again, we will measure all of this. We continue to collect data, but really to be able to summarize and say these are the results, we really need to wait until the end, and that's true for any clinical trial. We do have interim analysis for sort of the opposite to see if there's any problem, for safety or if the drugs are not clearly not helpful. We do have interim analysis, and so we constantly monitor that. And if there were any safety or again complete lack of efficacy, we will be able to tell in advance. But to see the opposite, sort of positive results, then we would have to wait until the end of the trial.
And a question about the criteria. Are people with PMA, not ALS, allowed to be in trials?
So if somebody has pure PMA, they would not be allowed in the trial because of the inclusion criteria, which are publicly available. You need a diagnosis of ALS. And
a question here about the diversity in recruitment. So is the Healy team trying to recruit more diversity in ethnicity of trial participants? There's little data about how different ethnicities respond. So is it possible to collect and analyze enough data to reach clinically significant conclusions?
Well, I'm very happy that you asked, because that's something that we're actively working on. And we were just so excited to receive a grant from the Tambourine Foundation, Tambourine Group, which is really a phenomenal cohort and was started by a nonprofit, really with the goal of increasing access and diversity in ALS in general and also in trials. So we're actively working on that. And so we will, roll out a few more initiatives. Absolutely, I completely agree with you. It's very important.
And then when a trial is finished and you read it out, including the open label extension, how will you go about releasing the results of the completed trial? Will it be press release, journal paper, conference?
Yeah, just one comment. In order for us to kind of release the results, we just need the double blind to be finished for the first set of data. Then at that time, you're right, the open label extension will still be ongoing. And so we will have a follow-up paper with the results of the open label extension as well. However, the first paper will be on the double blind, and that's going to be available sooner. And so, yes, we definitely, are going to communicate everything like as is customary in an academic research. We're going to have papers, presentations, we'll be, release them as soon as possible.
And another question about when to expect results. So when would results of the study be expected specifically for regimen B?
Yeah.
And were there any adverse effects for that
Yeah.
arm or any?
So again, in terms of any adverse effects, nothing that we was not expected. Again, we, fortunately so far, things have been going well. And in terms of the timelines for regimens A, B, and C, and verdiperstat is B, because they were all launched at the same time in the summer of 2020, we expect the results for A, B, and C, including verdiperstat, at the same time, essentially by the end of 2021.
And I think there are a handful of questions about AMX0035, so maybe we can kind of group them together.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just, looking to see if there's any updates or get some clarification on what the FDA approval process looks like and, when an EAP might be available for analogs.
Yeah, I think all of this is still being discussed, and I do expect that there's going to be, communications soon about Amylyx, and I know that people are also asking about other trials, Ibudilast or EH301, and I don't have direct knowledge of those. But again, I know that, each company continues to communicate results and sort of developments as they are available. So for Amylyx, I think, we're going to soon hear about, additional developments.
Kind of it looks like just in general, for any trial, what is the criteria for moving into an EAP availability for the drug being tested?
Yeah, that depends really. So first of all, EAPs were kind of not even on the radar in ALS until very recently. And so now we're really trying to jumpstart EAPs at different stages. So EAPs can be started when drugs are in the early stages of development or when they are in the late stages of development. So the ones that, again, as basically some can be started as the trials are ongoing, and others can be started after you have had positive results from the trial and the FDA review is in process. So I think there's different models there. What we're discussing right now in terms of EAPs in parallel to the platform trial are EAPs that are going on while the testing is happening. There might be other products for which, if the testing is finished, there can be opportunities for large scale EAPs after the trial is finished when the company is waiting for FDA approval. Yeah.
And then we should just get another question under the wire here. So given that ALS is always fatal, how are deaths included in the statistical analysis of adverse consequences if the death is from ALS and not from trial complications?
Yeah, there's a whole system for that, and that's one of the reasons we want to invite statisticians to be on this call to explain some of the statistical modeling for all of this. We get a lot of detailed information, and there are statistical models to handle that. But we don't expect many events in the context of the 6-month study. So again, that's not been a problem. So I just want to thank you for being here patiently every week and for really sharing so many great questions. It's actually very helpful feedback for all of us. And thank you also to all the people that wrote nice comments in the chat. Always appreciated. So thank you so much. And we will continue to have this series, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.